everyone, and welcome to our YouTube channel, Moneyline with Nancy at TV. In case you're not a subscriber yet, please do subscribe. Just press the subscribe button as well as turn on the notification bell so that you can get notifications when we upload our videos. Don't also forget to subscribe and join, follow, like our other social media platforms. Of course, you're seeing it right about now. Don't also forget to share this video across your platforms. Enjoy the video. Welcome back. Joining me now is Mr. Taiwo Oyedele, Chairman of the Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms. Of course, a seasoned voice on tax equity and economic development. Under his leadership, this committee has delivered the most comprehensive overhaul of Nigeria's tax architecture in decades. Mr. Oyedele, welcome to the program.
Thank you, my sister.
How are you, my brother? I wondered.
I'm finer than I used to be.
Than you used to be. I understand that.
Yes.
You know, we're talking during the break. When I was asking you that, I know your phones must be buzzing, explanation. Even for me yesterday, you needed to see the kind of questions I was answering as if I was a lecturer and part of your committee, you know, in terms of explaining to people. But will you say this is a long walk to freedom? According that's one the title of Mandela's book.
Yeah,
yes.
Madiba,
yes, long walk to freedom, or perhaps I'll say long walk to a bit of fiscal freedom.
Yeah.
Your committee was announced in July, inaugurated in August. October 2024, it was passed to the Parliament. May, we saw, you know, activities from the Parliament, and now the President had signed. Indeed, a long walk to freedom.
It is, I'll say, a long walk to resetting the foundation for our fiscal freedom, because it's important to remind ourselves that signing reform laws is not the Eldorado, it's not the destination, but it's a very important step forward, because without that framework, nothing else can be put in place to help us towards our destination. It's been a long journey, but realistically, given the extent of the reforms, even by any standard anywhere in the world, I think this is quite remarkable that as a country we're able to do this in less than 2 years from start to finish. We've seen laws that are not even as robust or expansive, as transformative as this, that took more than a decade for us to address. So I think we should say congratulations to all Nigerians. I know many Nigerians have their reservations about government, how we manage or mismanage revenue, whether there is fiscal exchange in terms of the benefit to the people of taxes that they pay. Those issues are also part of what we are addressing. Many people know the work we do as because of the tax reform bills, which are now tax reform laws. But actually, it's more than that. So the President gave us 3 broad mandates. One is fiscal governance, then we have tax reforms, and then we have growth facilitation, which is trying to go into the center and the heart of how do you grow the economy for shared prosperity. So all of those moving parts are still ongoing as we speak. So it is work in progress, but this is a moment to take a pause and celebrate the milestone.
At least it's a seemingly sign of small relief, you know, because the work is also in the implementation of it, which you've actually mentioned. Can you walk us through some of the things that you had to do? Because this new tax laws, of course, is an act now, so it's a law because the President has assented to it. You had to write new tax laws because even in your days in PwC, you've been on my show many years ago, and we've been talking about it. I remember you saying, no, our tax laws in the 60s, we're still doing it now, and all of that. So we had to write new tax laws, repeal old laws. Perhaps you brought in a few things or made new provisions from the old laws we had. Just in a few seconds, how did this work? Is it that the old laws are out, all of them?
So, yeah, good questions. We have laws that we implement today because the new laws that were signed yesterday will come into effect on the 1st of January 2026. So between now and 31st December, we'll still be operating the old laws. So these old laws that we operate currently, they date back to pre-colonial era.
Yes.
And, you know, we inherited it from our colonial masters, and we really haven't done much to them. Many of them are no longer fit for purpose, they're no longer relevant. New economies have emerged, and the world is drastically different today than it was in 1960 when we got our independence. So our tax system has not evolved as much. So it became a problem for growth, it became a problem for prosperity, it became a problem for investment and business expansion. And therefore, if we continue on that path, it doesn't matter how hard we work or how hard we pray, our growth will be limited and restricted significantly. So we said to ourselves, should we begin to amend these very old laws? It's like having a 1960 Peugeot and you are insisting on maintaining it.
Or bringing a Lamborghini engine.
Exactly,
inside
or bonnet. And then you repaint it. The fact is, you're going to struggle. So we thought what we should do is look at all the tax laws, find what is still relevant and useful in all of them, and then on top of that, assuming you have a brand new country called Nigeria today and you want to write a tax law for it, how should it look like? That was how we then prepared the new tax laws that have now been signed by Mr. President. So that was the journey we went through, and we think you know, it was a good job.
So let's begin to break it down, because I try as much as possible to be so elementary on this program.
Yes, it's important.
You know,
yeah.
and not thinking that we're talking to
Experts.
Yes, experts all the time. Let me start from the area of nuisance taxes. Was it yesterday? Was it yesterday? I think it was yesterday. No, 2 days ago when I was coming from the Afia Exim Bank event here in Abuja. And my car was, of course, I was just before traffic light, and I saw a few guys in front of my car, you know, asking my driver to wind down. Please, is this a private and all of that? AMAC and all of that. Where am I going to with this? Please, can we see if your car is this? Of course, revenue. You know what I'm talking about, nuisance taxes. You see a lot of people coming in to say, a radio license, a TV license, a local government this. Does this law address that? In fact, when I was asked to go, of course, because my car is private, but when that was happening, I said, this is a question for Taiwo Oyedele when he comes to meet me, you know. So let's start from that.
Yeah.
Not just even my experience, but you see trucks on the road, perhaps carrying food from one area of Nigeria to another. How does this, because these are the things that Nigerians want to know.
Yeah. And, interestingly, you know, it happened to me too.
I don't know, I don't know what Governor Wike is doing with these people here.
So my driver was taking me out for a meeting, and then we stopped at the traffic lights, and then someone just came and was knocking the glass. I was like, what's going on? So my driver said that they believe that looking at this car, it has to be a car where I should pay some levies.
Yes.
I think he said they thought it's official,
yes,
whatever it
official.
is. I said, so this is how we collect taxes, even in the FCT.
Yes.
You know, so you can imagine what goes on in villages and rural areas. So to answer your question, these new laws begin to address that problem. It will not solve all the problems. And the reason is because, unfortunately, that problem has its roots in the Constitution. So when you go to the 4th schedule, particularly it empowers local government to collect radio tax, TV tax, produce tax, wheelbarrow tax, bicycle tax. So if something is in the Constitution and you write a law to say you can no longer collect, they will say it's unconstitutional. So what we've done is to also send proposals to the National Assembly to amend the Constitution. Of course, that's a longer process than, you know, passing tax laws. But that process has commenced. In the meantime, what we're also doing is trying to convince the sub-national, particularly the governors and then local government, to say, we believe that if the law gives you the power to collect a tax, it also indirectly gives you the power not to collect. In other words, if in the FCT, for example, the local government agreed that it's not right to be chasing people around, collecting money on the streets, and they want to stop, nobody is going to take them to court and say, why are you not collecting, right? And also last week, just the additional good news is the National Security Advisor was with the governors, because now this issue has a security dimension to it, both in terms of physical security and food security. And the governors came out of their last meeting agreeing, based on their resolution, that they will discontinue by all means those nuisance taxes. So everything is working together. But I'll say again, we're not there yet, because we've tried a lot of these things in the past and it didn't work. What we are doing differently now is address it from the root cause, first and foremost, and then find practical ways of implementing, so that sooner rather than later, Nigerians can see this real relief in their day-to-day lives, in terms of not just nuisance taxes, but we have a lot of informal taxes collected by non-state actors. And then we have the implicit taxes, where you have to cater for what government should be doing for you. Until we are able to address all these facets of nuisance taxes, people will not feel the impact. Everything else we're saying will be grammar, like people say in Nigeria.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's peel this for tax acts now, these laws. Let's start from the Nigerian Tax Act now. Yeah. What does it entail? What are the benefits to Nigerians? Let's just quickly do that.
So the Nigerian tax, so there are four laws. So the Nigerian Tax Act talks about what taxes we collect in a nutshell. And the principle for that is fair taxation. Collect only from people who can pay, and make sure that the tax is progressive. Then we have the Nigerian Tax Administration Law. This is now, so we have what we collect, this is how we collect it. And it talks about the revenue agencies at the center, at the subnational, what the structure should look like, how they should operate efficiently. That is the administration. We're also trying to get some form of standardization in how we collect taxes. Then you have the Nigerian Revenue Service Establishment Law. This is not about who collects, right? What we collect, how we collect, who collects. Particularly for the federal government, Nigerian Revenue Service will be the main, if not the sole, revenue agency, collecting all levies and taxes that the federal government needs to collect. And every other agency of government will then focus on their primary mandates. And then, by extension, that NRS will collaborate with the rest of revenue agencies within and across Nigeria. And that takes us to the fourth law, which is the Joint Revenue Board Establishment Law. This is where we bring everybody together, because you can't say today, I hope we'll get there in my lifetime, like they have in France. Some of the engagement we've had was also with the revenue authorities in France. And in France, there's a central body that not only collects all taxes for everyone, they also make up payments for everyone. You know, and I thought it was so fascinating. When we're speaking to those guys, by the way, France collects one of the highest, if not the highest, tax to GDP ratio
about
in the world. Over 40, actually. Yes. So here they got 44%. Those guys will tell you if they start to collect, we collect it. They're so confident in the system they've set up. So they process, the money belongs to local government, but local government, you know, you have X amount of money, you want to pay, tell us who you want to pay and we'll help you pay. And then at the end of the year, they have all the information to prepare the financial statement. It's so very effective. I know Nigeria, we're not getting to that point now. People are almost going to fight you to a standstill if you suggest that. But let's start by collaborating first. So have local government, have state, have federal, but let's collaborate. Until such a time we build trust sufficiently enough to centralize how we process things. I think Nigerians have to start shifting their mindset about fiscal federalism. And you know, people say this in about feeding bottle federation, yes. They go to Abuja. I think it's condescending. It's not right, because what's important is not who is collecting my money for me. It is whether I own the money. If I'm a landlord, it doesn't matter that my agent collects the money on my behalf. So when the center collects VAT, they're not doing the state a favor when they share it to them. So people should not insult them to say they are coming to Abuja to share money.
Because it's their money.
It's their money. If we ask each of them to collect it, there will be more inefficiency, people will suffer for it, and the revenue will be lower than they're collecting.
Why we are saying that? Because
yes.
I also say it here, you know, especially when they come to Abuja every month to collect fact distribution. what we are actually, let me speak for myself.
Yes.
What I also mean is that beyond that, we can add more to the cake. That's what we're saying, and not for the state just depending on that. So
What
that's
I'll
actually what
suggest
I mean.
is, when we use the word depend, so it presupposes that someone is doing them a favor. I actually think that the narrative of let states be more creative also has led to some of these taxes they invented. What we should be saying is the taxes that have been rightfully allocated to you by the Constitution, let's optimize them. I will really be like the happiest person on earth if you have local government collecting only one tax. Maybe state collecting like 2, and then at the center that you're collecting for everybody, maybe another 1 or 3. This is the reason why we said all taxes combined should be a single digit. South Africa collected from just one tax alone. All that we made from all taxes, selling crude oil and doing everything combined, what they got from personal income tax was more than that. So there's no theory, no evidence, no data anywhere in the world that says the more the number of taxes, the more you collect. In fact, it's the opposite, it's the less you collect. But your point is valid. We need to get to a point where everybody is bringing their best, on board. And more importantly, when we collect those taxes, we must demonstrate how we're spending that for the benefit of the people in terms of the quality of spending and the priority of spending, which is very fundamental. Because sometimes even when the money is not stolen, it's wasted.
Yes.
Sometimes we're doing projects and we're on those projects for 10, 12 years. That's destroying value for society. We have to behave differently. Otherwise, building trust to be able to get to where we want to get to will be hard and harder than it needs to be.
So what do these tax laws, because I heard you clearly and you've also said it here before, to streamline it now to how many? How
the
many
goal
single,
is, yes, it's a single digit. So
do you have
combined,
the numbers now? Yes.
Because what we've done is to start with what is it that we can harmonize without violating the Constitution. That's what we've done.
Which are these 4?
Which are these 4. So there's still a lot of them that we are unable to harmonize because unless we amend the Constitution, we can't move forward. Of course, in the meantime, we are trying to appeal to say, you have power to collect, but what if you don't collect? We should all be fine.
Yes.
That process is ongoing. I'll say, let's wait until we're able to amend the Constitution, then we can say confidently, these are the number of taxes. In fact, there will be a law. We've actually drafted it.
Okay.
Once the Constitution is amended, you will see a law that tells you very easily on a page, these are the taxes federal can collect, state can collect, local government can collect, and how they share it. Anything outside of that, you can tell the person is a criminal if they want to collect from you. So that's the destination we hope to get to.
I'm happy that I asked that question.
Yes.
In the sense that that's where we are going to. And, beyond all of this that you and your committee has done, there are also layers to it. So it needs to also take understanding to be able to pull out some of these information which you're giving to us. Now, let's go to the core of the matter. What is the need for Nigerians? Someone that is earning salary, a company making like 50 million, 100. Let's really break it down. Income strata-wise, revenue strata-wise for companies, because I think that's what our viewers really want to hear now.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. I think first and foremost is to say if you're a low-income earner, in other words, you're working and your pay is not that substantial. At the moment, I'll say about 100 and maybe 110,000 a month. It's 1.3 million a year. If that is the level of income you earn as a worker, either in the private or public sector, once these laws are implemented, effective January 2026, you will no longer pay PAYE. So if you were paying pay as you earn. So if you were paying 4,000 naira per month, that 4,000 naira becomes part of your net salary. So you see a jump in your net salary that you take home every month. If you are not a worker and you're self-employed or you run a small business, if your turnover is no more than 50 million a year, because what we did was to do some calculations to say, assuming your net margin is 10%, how much do you really have left for yourself? This is this is when you take care of expenses from your income. You sold things worth 50 million, the cost of everything, is maybe 45 million. You have only 5 million left. So that 5 million is 10%. We call it net margin. So thank you for reminding me that I'm not talking to only accountants. So we said this person that is doing this business is also taking a risk. You know the stress and the headache when it's getting to the end of the month to think about paying salary, buying diesel and all of that. Let's encourage them a little bit more. So the threshold for exempting them from paying taxes is higher than if you were a worker. Because otherwise, everybody will say, why don't I just become an employee if it's easier and more rewarded? So those people will see a relief, not only from their income taxes, they will not have to charge VAT, they will not have to deduct withholding tax, and most of these people also have employees that don't even earn up to 100K a month. So in which case, they won't have to worry about pay as you earn for their staff. Just keep doing your business and we pray for you to grow. So you keep growing and then you grow to the tax nets when you have the capacity to pay. For large businesses, we also haven't left them behind. Large businesses will see, there's no specific date yet, but we have the provision in the law. They will see their corporate tax rate drop from 30% to 25%. We have that in the law. The commencement day will be as approved by Mr. President by an order in consultation with the NEC, because the governors were saying we couldn't reduce, so we had to create a framework for that collaboration to happen. Middle class, by our calculations, are people earning about 2 million naira or less a month. They will see a drop in their own pay as you earn. It won't be zero, but there will be a drop.
What percentage?
No, it will now vary. If you earn 1.5 million, your drop is lower than if I earn 500,000, because we're making it progressive. For the high net worth individuals, we also have them in mind. Even though they will pay slightly more personal income tax, they will see other benefits in the form of selling properties, buying properties. There will be no VAT. And many of them are also people who own businesses. So in other words, I own a business. You cut my tax rate by, worth of 5 million, but you ask me to pay personal income tax worth additional 2 million. I'm still better off. So at the end of the day, there's something in this for everyone. And for Nigeria, the benefit for the government is you make more money, not necessarily by taxing people more, but by doing three things. One, you address evasion. Evasion is people who are just not paying taxes, even though they are making money that is liable to tax. Number two is you take care of wasteful incentives, where government gives away money, and that money is not really adding value to the economy. And number three, which is the most fascinating, is from growth. Because we are removing taxes on investments, on capital, all the impediment that make it difficult for people to grow. Now, when the economy grows, tax will just come as a natural consequence. So this is why sometimes people don't understand, or maybe they don't believe when we say we want to raise revenue, but that's not our primary objective. We want to do every other thing first, and then revenue will follow naturally. And these are the three areas where the revenue will come from without having to impose more taxes on the Nigerian people.
Don't you think that even small businesses earning less than 50 million naira that are now exempt from this, that there will be some kind of abuses or fragmentation? You understand
yeah,
what I'm going to?
This
in
was
terms
a
of,
big,
yes,
it was a big debate. With
at the end of the year, I will now be thinking,
yeah.
so that I don't pay that extra money.
It was a big debate with the revenue authorities because it was difficult convincing our stakeholders that this was a good idea. They said everybody in Nigeria will just be a small company.
Yes, a company.
So we say, yeah, you see, Nigerian people are not worse than people in other countries. In every country in the world, if you have a provision like that in your tax law and you don't have safeguard, people will abuse it. So the problem is not with the Nigerian people. It is with the system we have developed. So what we have done differently now is, if you want to lie about your affairs, feel free to go ahead and lie. We give you a guarantee that we will find out. And finding out is not even rocket science, to be honest. We have intelligence within the system. So we are building a tax intelligence system now as we speak. When people make money, they may lie about their income, but they cannot hide their spending. Spending is very important because you can't buy from yourself. So each time you spend money on something, there's a third party who has a vested interest in reporting the amounts that you spent with them.
And there's a cashless system now.
Yes. So what you have on your phone, what you have on your bank account, on your payment card, when you travel abroad, you have an investment account with Nigerian Stock Exchange.
I know what you're saying.
You have land,
Yeah.
you buy a car,
And
you
there's a central
throw
BVN
party, everything. You
that
see in the
connects
tax laws.
everything.
We now have a concept we call tax ID.
ID, yes.
That tax ID says, don't worry about TIN. This one I will say tax identification number, and we keep fighting that. No, no worry. We are moving to a point where all I need to know about you is your phone number. And it brings out everything because it's linked to everything else. So that's why instead of saying TIN, we now say tax ID. I can identify you with anything that is unique to you,
So does
like
that
your
mean that
phone
the
number.
the TIN number does not?
No, it will continue
It
to
will
be there. We
continue.
just put something in the foundation. So you have your BVN, there's a foundation. A foundation for individuals is NIN. For companies, their CAC number. So with that intelligence, if you are making sales and you under disclose, we will find out, because the person that bought from you wants to claim a deduction, he will report it. And then when we piece the information together, your spending will not align with your income. You tell
Wants
us.
to claim a deduction, sorry,
Yeah.
because I'm getting insights
Yeah.
from what you're saying.
Yes.
If it's a small business, it's exempt from VAT
Yes.
now.
Yes.
So
And
how
it's
yes.
So no, what I actually mean
Yeah.
is, I'm a small business, and I want to find a way to manipulate what I report so it does not exceed 50 million, so I don't have to pay tax. That's my objective. Okay. So I sell to so many people, including Nancy. When I sell to Nancy, let's say it's a service or it's a good, for you, that's an expense because you purchased it from me. Now, because you purchased it from me, if you are into any business, you want to report it as an expense so that you can reduce your own tax. Now, that's your own objective of reducing your own tax, helps the government to get the right intelligence from you about what I sold to you. So if I had done that, declare what I sold to you, it would not be consistent with what you disclose in your own returns. So that information, when you piece it together, it forms a whole that can tell whether somebody is lying or not. Many countries have done it, even in Africa, Rwanda, South Africa. When they implemented this in Rwanda, because we spent some time with them trying to understand what they've done, those guys are really very innovative. When they implemented this for the first time, more than 90% of the taxpayers lied about their tax affairs.
That was why I asked that question.
The following year, compliance was 98%. Because people now know that actually when you lie, they can find out. If you imported these iPads for sale, and you imported 100 units, as you're clearing it at customs, we help you put the 100 units in your system with the taxman. Every time you sell an iPad, you're supposed to use a system that reports the sale to the government. If you refuse to use that system because you want to hide from the tax authority, let's say you have sold, out of 100, you have sold 90, but you only reported 70 to the taxman. In the system of the taxman, it will show that you still have 30 unsold. At the end of the year, you will confidently bring your account to say, only 10 do I have left. The taxman will say, what happened to 20? Did they disappear? That system itself is a big safeguard, and therefore we are comfortable that this system, while not being 100% foolproof to abuse, it will reduce it significantly.
The definition of small business, does it include professional services that are small businesses?
No, no. The reason being that actually, there are countries where, and we actually have it also in our new tax laws, where you're exempted from VAT, but you have the option to say you don't want the exemption. Because there are instances where the exemption actually doesn't favor you. So let me give you an example. If I'm a professional, an accountant, a lawyer, chances are that I have the knowledge to understand the tax system, right? So I can read, I can write, I can fill a form. So that's number one. Number two, I render services to people who have the ability to pay. That's why they can hire consultants. If I charge them VAT, I can claim my own VAT on all my expenses, so it favors me. If I can't charge them my VAT, then I can't claim the VAT that I incur. So overall, as a professional, you're actually better off charging VAT than not charging it.
So if I'm a professional, I like where this thing is going, and I'm just praying we have more time. And unfortunately, if I'm a professional, I offer professional services.
Yes.
But I'm also a small business, so I fall within the 50 million naira or less. So less than. How do you?
No, we've written it in the law.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, yeah, I understand you
Yes.
perfectly. We've written it in the law that this small business definition exclude professionals, and we define who a professional is. Because if somebody will say they are a professional makeup artist, they're a professional cleaner, that's not the professionalism we are talking about. We want to still allow those people to enjoy their exemption. But you're an accountant, you're a lawyer, you're an engineer, you're a doctor.
You're a broadcaster like me.
Yeah, you have capacity to understand the law. Charge VAT, because we need that VAT for the system to work, and it helps you as well. The other thing is that professionals, and this is one of the concepts we're trying to promote in Nigeria, you find in the public sector, many government agencies are exempted from tax. We don't like that idea. Because once you keep exempting people from tax who are in a position to make the system work, they develop a mindset that they shouldn't pay taxes. These professionals act as catalysts. They are there everywhere. Lawyers are signing contracts, accountants are helping prepare financial statements, tax consultants are helping companies file returns. If they are not paying taxes, it can actually negatively affect the system. So this is the reason why we want professionals to comply with tax obligations. And it's not only in Nigeria. And this is a common practice in many countries around the world.
Let's talk about zero taxes on essentials, VAT.
Yes.
On essentials, food and all of that. Explain that in detail. And what it means for ordinary Nigerians, for example, because I go to supermarkets, for example, and when I finish paying, I'll see at the VAT. Yeah. What if I buy food items at the supermarket? Would I still pay VAT because now they are offering services, and because now their revenue may be more than 100 million or whatever at the end? You know where I'm going to. I hope our viewers understand these technicalities. Yeah. You understand what I mean? But yes. I'm buying food, I'm buying the essentials, baby food, all those stuff at the supermarket.
Yeah, excellent. You know what the reality is for us in Nigeria is that the vast majority of businesses are small businesses. The vast majority of low-income, poor people, or if you like, call it masses, patronize small businesses. Like if you go to my village, you won't find any big business in the whole village. So that village does not need to worry about whether the item is liable to VAT or not, because everybody in the village is exempt from VAT. But of course, if you live in Abuja, Lagos, Port Harcourt, those big cities, you have big businesses. So this is how it works out. If the business is not a small business, they have to charge VAT if there's VAT on the item. So if you're buying a mobile phone, you're buying airtime, you pay VAT when
even
you buy
if it's
something.
Food? If it's
No.
food.
So that's step one. Step two now is, even if you buy from a big company and the item itself is not liable to VAT, which means there's no VAT, then you won't pay VAT, even if you buy it from a billion-dollar business in Nigeria. So for example, if what you're buying is you're buying gari, it doesn't matter that the gari is nicely packaged in a supermarket where there's AC and TVs,
yes.
you still won't pay VAT because that item itself does not carry VAT. Right? So that applies across board because it's an essential basic consumption. So it's only when the item is liable to VAT, then there's a difference between when you're buying it from a small business where there will be no VAT on it versus you're buying it from a big business where there will be a VAT on it. The idea also is that people who are really poor will make that choice. You know, there are people that, I've seen someone drive to like 3 kilometers to find the next station because of 2 naira difference in the pump price.
Yes.
So the poor people will really be intentional to say, this place, they will charge people VAT. This one, they will go to that other one. If you're at a point where 50 naira extra on a meal of 1,000 doesn't make a difference to you, you just buy the food where you like to buy it, and that's the way it should work. So that is the analysis for that zero rated. So on food items, on education, you know, the UK just introduced VAT on education now, and it's 20%. So they're not finding it funny. So we think that we're doing the right thing by removing VAT. So if you run a school, before, you were not charging VAT on school fees. But in putting up your school, you have desks, you have computers, you have all manner of things where you've paid VAT. You had to bear the cost. Under this new tax law, you claim that money back from the government. You see where the big advantage is coming from. So those businesses will see their costs drop drastically. And we're hoping, and maybe also appealing, that they shouldn't keep all of that to themselves. So if I run a school, and this new law is giving me a benefit of, let's say, 10 million a year, can I just give 5 million back to the parent by reducing the fees? That is really when the benefit will come to the people. We want businesses to make more profit, we want them to grow, but we also want the Nigerian people to benefit.
Your catchphrase in all of this has been pro people, pro poor. How do you also be pro poor, pro revenue? Because by eliminating perhaps VAT on food, education, and all of that, what revenue substitution strategies are being considered to be able also to balance the books of the government? Because
yes, the book needs to balance.
Exactly.
Yeah. Excellent question. So we have a few provisions. The biggest one we had was to increase VAT. It wasn't popular.
Yes.
We're not allowed to do it, and we agree. We concede. Doesn't mean necessarily that we agree, but we concede. But what we actually see as the biggest opportunity for revenue growth is to, one, close the tax evasion gap. I can tell you that the number of people that should be paying VAT, even in Abuja, Federal Capital Territory, even in Lagos, are less than 30% that are paying. So there are loads of people who either under-declare how much they are making or don't even pay the VAT. Some people collect the VAT, they never remit those VAT. If you address that problem, you can double Nigerian tax revenue in just 1 year. The second one is loophole, where government itself, through its policy, has created a problem. All manners of waivers here and there. We're stopping that, and we've put those in the tax laws. And then the third one is, if the economy grows, if my turnover used to be 100 million and it's now 500 million, at least my VAT remittance will go up. My CIT payment will go up. So it's coming from closing evasion gap, addressing loopholes, as well as growth in the economy. This is where revenue will come from. So we are quite optimistic that in less than 3 years from implementation of these new reforms, our tax to GDP ratio will move from, right about 10 as of 2023 to not less than 18%. We're currently at 13.5%. We're actually doing better than what we envisaged.
So do you think you will get that 18% by 2026?
It may not be 2026 because we are starting implementation in January. It will be just 1 year. I think maybe 27 is more realistic.
Okay, so what does this also mean for companies? Last night I was speaking with my tax consultant.
They are very proactive.
And I was like, okay, that means that after this year I should every year filing my tax. I said, no, just hold on, no. That after this year, for 2026, I will still pay everything I needed to pay for this year.
Yeah, that's correct.
That I think from 2027, filings is when I will begin to see
these are some of the complications in the system.
Yes.
So there's what we call preceding year basis when it comes to income tax. What it means is the money you make in 2024, you pay the tax in 2025.
Yes.
This is for businesses, so because for individuals, you pay on a monthly basis. That's why we call it pay as you earn.
Pay as you earn.
So value-added tax is also on a monthly basis. So these different taxes play out differently. So your consultant is right. The money you make in this 2025, you still pay the tax based on 25 rules in 2026. It is the money you make in 2026 that you now be under the new laws, so it's important.
Which would now be in
2027 when you are paying.
So technically, even if implementation of this starts in 2026, before Nigerians will begin to see the effect will be from 2027.
No, not really. The people
that
are affected.
Of businesses.
Yes, you are like top 1%. So the people that are affected, people that are affected by that are very small. The majority of people are people earning money on a monthly basis, running their small business. They will feel the impact from January when that law is implemented. I think that will be more than 90% of Nigerians.
Across small
so the people that need to wait for 1 year, actually people who are comfortable.
I don't want us to go inside. Let's talk about another issue around Nigeria Revenue Service now. Repealing FIRs. How about those other agencies like customs? We have so many agencies that take money. Customs, NIMASA, there are many.
NUPRC.
Yes, NUPRC. There are a lot of them. What does this what will now they be called? Nigerian
NRS.
NRS. What will they now be doing? And
Great.
how are they going to begin to implement it? Because I do know that following this law, there needs to be even system reprogramming, taxpayer education, infrastructure upgrade at the back end, perhaps a bit of reorganization even from FIRS.
Yes.
Yes,
No,
Zaka
it's still
Dedeji's
FRS
people.
until
Yes,
next year.
yes. So how will that work? And
Yes.
another question, sorry.
Yes, yes.
Where does it put customs and co? I heard you clearly at the beginning when you said everything will go to the central. But how will they now begin to work, especially for businesses that interface with these agencies?
Yeah, yeah. It's a big problem we have currently. If you look at the government budgets and the Fiscal Responsibility Act, you see over 60 agencies were listed with revenue targets. So this is not the way to go. So what we've done in the tax laws is we've created a legal framework that says that's no longer going to be the case. So the law now says revenue taxes for the government to be collected centrally by the NRS. But it does not mean that all of that will happen in January 2026, because there's a process. So customs, for example, what is happening is a system for harmonization and collaboration using technology. That is part of why we're doing the single window project. So if you interface with customs, you won't even know whether you're paying to the custom or not. It will just be seamless.
Seamless, okay.
Yeah. And the same thing we want to do with the subnational. So we collaborate and things can be done seamlessly. That would be the first big step. The other steps will take time. It might be years before that will happen, where you then physically put those agencies together in one place. And the level of resistance in Nigeria is high, and we thought we should be pragmatic and not try and take a lot on board at the same time, otherwise these things would have been impossible. So we'll get there. The big process is that, progress is that we're having that harmonization done using systems and technology. We're going to outlaw the payment of taxes in cash, for example, as well.
Director, I'll crave your indulgence just 2 more minutes because I wouldn't allow Taiwo go without asking this question, though I have so many other questions. Let's talk a little bit in a few seconds about the tax ombudsman and what they will be doing. Then the other question is around what lessons did you learn, especially from the political minefield that you had to encounter, you and your committee had to encounter. The third question is what more is expected from your committee as you go on, very quickly.
The ombudsman is set up to cater for people we let out in the code for so long. These are people who do not have the capacity to understand the law themselves. Many of them haven't even seen a copy of the law before. They don't have to have seen it. They just have to do their business legitimately. So the ombudsman will come in and help them. You can make a call, you can speak in your language, you can call a call center, and help will be on the way. That's the ombudsman. So the second point is the lesson from this. So I learned a big lesson that the fact that I mean well for you does not mean that you would support me. So it's my duty to try and explain to you and make you understand that the intentions are noble. And because the trust level is very low, it makes everything harder. But we think this is, maybe it was actually a good thing that it happened the way it did. What else is left for us is to focus on implementing these tax laws and completing the rest of our mandate around the fiscal reform, including we're working with the Budget Office, for example, we're working with the National Assembly, we're working with the sub-national, including even the reform of the local government. So there's still a lot of work we have ahead of us, and we appeal to the Nigerian people to please support us, criticize us, but do it so constructively.
Thank you very much, Mr. Oyedele, for coming on the program. I know this will not be the last of it. Let's continue to educate. Our job, and let me speak also for myself, my job here is to inform, educate, as well as enlighten you, especially on economic and financial matters. Thank you again for coming.
Thank you for having me.
All right, I've been speaking with Taiwo Oyedele, who is the Chairman, Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms. So you've heard it, we've tried to peel the layers, but so many things that we still need to know about those laws, and you get to learn about them in the course of this program next week. Be the best you can be and be the change that you want to see. I am Nancy Naji. Bye for now. Thank you for making it up to this minute watching the video. Thank you all. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Moneyline with Nancy TV. Like, follow all our other social media platforms where we keep you up to speed with fantastic interviews, as well as markets, personal finance, business, and economy information. This is the best place to be. I'll see you all again in the next video.